it.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, on the radio, on podcasts everywhere, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. I'm interviewing people who are running for San Antonio mayor. This is bona fide news with value designed to inform the public about not just one candidate, but hopefully all the candidates. And joining us today is Gina Ortiz Jones. But before we talk about your background, let me begin with prayer. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the gifts and blessings that you give to us. Please forgive us for our sins, for our mistakes, for doing the wrong thing or failing to follow your will. Please help Gina Ortiz Jones and me give good information to the listeners about the San Antonio mayor race. Help us to do everything we do for the good of your people, for our own good and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Gina Ortiz Jones, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I grew up on the far west side of San Antonio. I really like to share, though, that our family story starts over 40 years ago when my mom came to this very special country. My mom graduated from the #1 university in the Philippines, but she came here as a domestic helper. She knew even if she came to this country in that capacity, if she was willing to work hard, the sky's the limit, right? And so I know a lot of prayer went into that decision. She bet on herself, and she came here. And she reminded my sister and I every single day that we were lucky, not smart, lucky to have been born in this very special country. And we'd have to give back to a country that gave us so much. It's why I was honored to serve in the Air Force in a number of ways. And it's why my sister proudly serves in the Navy to this day. It wasn't always easy, though. Reduced lunch, subsidized housing, those were critical investments, right? Not handouts, investments that allowed me to grow up healthy and earn an Air Force ROTC scholarship that took me from John Jay High School to Boston University. I know we've got a lot of Texans obviously listening here, and folks will appreciate, I showed up to Boston to BU during orientation, and Todd, they were going on for about 2 hours, and I leaned over to the person next to me and I said, well, now when do you think they're going to bring out the football team? Little did I know before Google, right, that they had done away with the football team a couple of years prior due to Title IX. But you know what? Apparently lacrosse, field hockey, these are sports in some parts of the country. So, but, I was very thankful to be able to study there and have an experience there. And also, I will say one of my most formative experiences, though, was also at Boston University, certainly as a person and as a leader. Because I was there on a 4-year Air Force ROTC scholarship, I had to sign a piece of paper, Todd, that said I will not engage in homosexual behavior because don't ask, don't tell was the policy at the time, right? And I knew what that. Yeah, well, I knew what that meant, right? My opportunity to get an education, my opportunity to serve our country, my opportunity to die for our country if need be, all of that goes away just because at the time we didn't have enough leaders with the courage to say anybody ready and willing to serve their country should have the opportunity to do so. So you better believe, fast forward 20 some odd years, when I was honored to serve as the Undersecretary of the Air Force, the #2 over the Air Force and Space Force, I challenged myself to be the leader that I wish I would have had as that young person, right? Committed to the success of everybody, courageous enough to raise the right hand and protect and defend, support and defend the Constitution. It also was a very important experience for me, and I charged myself and really was like, whenever I lead, if I'm going to be leading a discussion or making a really important decision, I want to make sure I am always thinking about who am I not hearing from and why am I not hearing from them. I think that's really important as a leader to make sure that we're always questioning assumptions, questioning, the process, making sure that we're making good investments and decisions with the entire community in mind, right? Unto whom much is given, much is expected. I know that from my own.
All of that, because that's one of my questions to you about how you make decisions and what are some of your guiding principles.
Yeah. Let
with
me just say,
your
let me just wrap up that piece though, in that, not only was it, not only did I have that very formative experience, but as the undersecretary, I managed a $173 billion budget. I led 600,000 people, and I look forward to bringing that service and leadership to my own hometown, and certainly leading with urgency. And so for folks that may not listen to the entire interview, what I would say is please go to my website, GinaOrtizJones.com, and I've addressed the things that I want to work on in the first 100 days, right? That really get at what I think to be the most important, which is how can we bring down costs where we can, make smart investments where we must, and really bring more accountability to how our tax dollars are being spent. So happy to answer a couple of questions, but that's really
okay. Well,
my
no,
leadership
that was one of
philosophy.
them too. What would your priorities be? So you said bring costs down and uh, help promote opportunities. How do you plan to do that?
Yeah, so one of the things I think is really important is that we are addressing what I hear a lot about, Todd, housing affordability, right? And this looks depending on what your situation is, it is still tied to your ability to afford your housing payment or mortgage payment or your property taxes, right? So whether you're somebody who owns a home in Menke Park and the home is paid off, but you're really struggling with rising property taxes, or as I just talked to a young bartender at Sings, which is a restaurant right off the strip, North St. Mary's Strip. He's got to drive almost more than 30 minutes for a place where he feels comfortable and renting and is affordable for him. And so on my website, one of the things that I think is important is increasing the supply of housing that is affordable, right? And we need to go faster on these things. We've got, and the reason I put forward the plan, let me just start big picture. The reason I put forward the things that I want to work on in the first 100 days, Todd, is because even if we had a different president, we'd still have over half the kids in our community, grades 3 through 8, that are not reading at level, right? Their math skills are not at level. We'd still have 95,000 families that are housing insecure every month. And we'd still have 67,000 folks on that wait list for affordable housing. And if you were on 281 or 1604 or 35 or 37 at 5 p.m., you'd still be questioning your life choices, right? Because of all the delayed construction all over the city, which is really not only a pain point for people when they're in traffic, but I know a pain point for our small business owners as well. Which is why I said these are the things we really need to start to tackle again, because these challenges and opportunities, we have long admired them, and now we need to start working on them. So for example, first 100 days, hey, those housing projects that are 70 to 100% affordable, that co-locate childcare, that help us meet our transit-oriented objectives. City staff, help me understand how we can go faster on those things. Because I think, Todd, as you know, in your own life, when somebody shares something with you and says, hey, this is something that's really challenging me, that's really a vote of trust, trust that you'll hear them and trust that you'll try to do something about it, right? Which is why really have taken that and said, how can we go faster? What I think that also does is for those developers and those investors, it is a strong signal to them about the types of projects that are going to get our attention, right? For the last bond, the 2022 bond, only allotted for 4,000 affordable housing units. That's well short of what we need just based on some of the stats I described. I think it's really important, Todd, that we're also looking at how well some of the major investments we are currently making are working. One of those programs I want to take a hard look at is Ready to Work. Folks may remember this was a program that started during COVID. We had COVID dollars, right, from the federal government. And so I think a perfect example of where San Antonio's heart is in the right place, but the execution has shown that we have some areas to improve, right, based on the data that we now have. And so when you look at the data, and this is available on the website, on the Ready to Work website, 25% of the folks that go through that program, Todd, are still not in an approved job 12 months after finishing that program, right?
Wow.
That means that we're not training people to need, right? If we were training people to a need in our community, they would walk right into a job. They probably have a job before they finish the program, right? That is on top of the fact that we lose, and talking to some of the city council folks, we lose a lot of those graduates to Houston. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to train people to be ready to work in Houston. You got to work in San Antonio, right? And I think it's also really important that the program is working as it was originally sold to voters. Again, this was an intent to upskill folks to prepare them for other opportunities. What it has now now turned into, unfortunately, is subsidizing some of the internal development programs at these multi-million-dollar corporations. And the challenge with that is that anybody who's worked in private knows that those companies were going to make those investments regardless, because everybody knows you need to train your folks. But that is not how the program was sold to us, right? And so and the idea is, and frankly, the explanation that they're doing that to improve the numbers, to juice the numbers, if you will, it's just not a good. Is not how the program was sold, and it is not well serving, I think, the community the best way it could. I think the new metric should be 90% of the folks should be in an approved job within 90 days. That means we are training people to need. And I saw this firsthand, Todd. I think it's really important as a leader that you go see how these things are working for yourself. So a great ready to work partner that we've got, they're on the south, well, they got a campus on the south side and on the north side. But they do, it's called Community Healthcare Professionals. And what they do is they train all the folks that they're not the doctor or the nurse in the clinic, but they're all those other folks that are making that clinic work, right? Your med tech, your biotech, your farm tech, your billing, your admin. The ready to work students there are there on a $7,300 Pell Grant, right? The average student there is a young Latina, 26-year-old, couple kids, single mom, and she has put herself, on a path to a better life and a better job. And so again, those are examples of where the investments they make sense, because no one's going to AI their way out of drawing blood, right? And that's a real need in our community. Now, in other places, again, the program could be improved upon. I think it's also really important. We're thinking about major investments in our community. We're thinking about public safety. This is something I hear quite a bit about, whether you're talking about our unhoused population, and certainly just making sure we've got, our police officers and our firefighters are well resourced. It was important for me, again, to hear firsthand from them. And I'm quite concerned, when our police officer unions say that they are several hundred officers short, when you've got the fire union saying they're about 15 substations short. I think as a veteran, as somebody who's worked in national security my entire career, I'm always going to be very attuned to how well our first responders are prepared. Not only do we have enough, but hey, what is their readiness level, right? Anyone who's worked in national security knows it's important that we're looking at how well these folks are ready to respond. Los Angeles has shown us we can't make assumptions when it comes to the readiness of our units.
Thank you so much for joining us. That's the end of our segment. I wish you the best of luck.
Okay. Thanks so much, Todd. Appreciate it. GinaOrtizJones.com. Thanks.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio, or welcome back. Hey, we're back after talking with Gina Ortiz Jones, one of the candidates for San Antonio mayor. And for this segment, I want to talk about some news that you probably heard or read this week, just a couple of days ago, is about the Institute for Texan Cultures, the museum that was inside the building known as the Texas Pavilion. Well, the Conservation Society of San Antonio has filed a lawsuit to stop the Texas Pavilion from being demolished, which was scheduled to be demolished this summer, because the Conservation Society of San Antonio says that it's historic and we should keep it. We should use it for something else, because UTSA does have the right to move the Institute for Texan Cultures to wherever location it wants. And I'll tell you more detail about this in a few more minutes. There was an area of law that I get to talk about that throws a monkey wrench into everybody's plans here, and it's a deed that had some restrictions in it that was filed way back when. I have a copy of them here. My associate attorney at Marquardt Law Firm helped me dig those up. The question is, should the Texas Pavilion, which housed the Institute for Texan Cultures, be maintained or demolished so that something else like a stadium for the Spurs can be built? Well, I told you that the Conservation Society of San Antonio filed the lawsuit, but what do you think the significance of the Texas Pavilion is? Well, you probably already know this. If you've lived here your whole life, you know that in 1968, there was the World's Fair, and so the Texas Pavilion was built for that. And after 5 decades, the UTSA closed that museum. And so I wanted to know why. Some people want to tear it down, some people want to keep it. And so I went wherever anybody goes when you want to find out opinions from everybody in town. You go to Facebook. So what I learned is that the reason UTSA moved the Institute for Texan Cultures out of the Texas Pavilion is because UTSA claims that the facilities were deteriorating and the cost for repairs was too high. And so the university, with guidance from experts, determined that the archives and exhibits should be moved. And so that leaves the question, well, what do we do with the empty building, a historic empty building? Some people say they want to keep it. That's the Conservation Society of San Antonio's view. And so if you look up Conservation Society of San Antonio on Facebook, they have several posts that were made by KTSA and San Antonio Express News, and then they have their own page that they've been posting on. But what I like to read are the comments. And so if you have a comment about this, I'm going to post this video to the Talk Law Radio Facebook page, and you can post a comment there. Just say, "Hi, Todd. This is an interesting topic. I wanted you to know how I feel about the Texas Pavilion. Tear it down or keep it." You get to let me know how you feel. Also, you could post your comment on YouTube. If you like to watch YouTube, then go to YouTube and search for Talk Law Radio in the search bar, and then look for the Lady Justice logo in the red, white, and blue colors. There were a lot of comments that I found that were some version of, let's do something modern, get rid of it, and do something new. So one person said, keeping it equals no vision for growth. The Spurs will move to Austin. Another one sarcastically posted, let's stop progress and have our own version of the Astrodome rotting away just to save history. Another Facebook person said he was boycotting NIOSA because, quote unquote, this is ridiculous and absurd and completely unnecessary. Still another person said, good. At least someone is trying to prevent yet another billion-dollar corporate welfare at taxpayer expense. Why don't they fix the roads or give us money back instead? That would be much better for the community in downtown. It's already gentrified enough. So I wanted to take your pulse on this question. Do you think that old buildings have value for historical purposes, or do you think of gentrification, which is just everything's old and dilapidated and falling down and falling into disrepair? Here's another comment, just let the building go already. Another one said, knock it down. Someone else opined, Conservation Society is hindering good development in San Antonio. And here's another perspective besides the keep it because it's historical, demolish it for the future growth and vision of the city. This third opinion was demolish it, but not for a stadium. So this person said they could raise that building and build a new building on that site. Some other things that I learned about the Texas Pavilion. One writer said that it was built to be permanent. And so it's made with concrete and steel. And so it could be repurposed for some other use, for some other building. The leader for the Conservation Society of San Antonio had mentioned maybe it could be used as a practice court for the Spurs. So I think that the Conservation Society of San Antonio is trying to let people know that it doesn't have anything against the Spurs, but I haven't mentioned it yet. This is a potential site for a new Spurs stadium. Whoever came up with Project Marvel has written about that or mentioned that in the news. There's so much confusion about that. I've been trying to get the mayoral candidates to talk about the Marvel project and whether the San Antonio Spurs and the San Antonio Missions should have facilities in that area of downtown. What do you think? Do you think that we need to build more stadiums and put them in a centralized location downtown? Or do you think we should do something else with that money? One of the guys in my circle of friends has said that he'll never forget when the Alamo Dome was built. And so there's some hard feelings about whether the city leaders at that time fulfilled all of their promises that they made about what the Alamo Dome was going to be like and the development of the city around it and how that really hasn't come to pass. So do you think that you would hold that against the leaders now, even though the people that made those decisions way back then probably aren't in city government anymore? Let me tell you about this deed. So the city of San Antonio signed over this property years ago. Let's see, when was it? It was February 14th, 1967. City of San Antonio, a Texas municipal corporation, acting by its city manager pursuant to ordinance number 34989, adopted November 23rd, 1966, for and in consideration of the development by the grantee of the hereinafter described land pursuant to the covenants to which this conveyance is made, subject hereinafter, has granted, sold, and conveyed, and by these presents does grant, sell, and convey unto the state of Texas all of the following described real property located in the city of San Antonio. The important part is on the next page where it says grantee, state of Texas, and its successors and assigns covenant, that's promises, that it will construct and maintain a Texas State Exhibits building therein pursuant to Section 4 of Senate Bill 166 enacted by the 59th Legislature, and provide therein exhibits of the types named in Section 5 of said act, and or make other state of Texas uses of the premises that will be attractions to visitors to the city of San Antonio and the state of Texas. You'll find some of the media guys did mention this deed, but what they didn't find that my associate attorney Stetson Honey found is a correction deed that was filed a few months later. May 11th, 1967. This is breaking news. Nobody else is talking about this. I have to pat myself on the back for having a guy like Stetson Honey dig this up. So the correction deed doesn't change everything, but it shrinks down the covenant to just this. Grantee and its successors and assigns covenant that it will construct and maintain a Texas State Exhibits building therein, and or make other state of Texas uses of the premises that will be attractive to visitors to the city of San Antonio and the state of Texas. That could be anything. Let me know what you think. Post a comment, send me an email, host@talklawradio.com. I'm Todd Marquardt. I'll talk to you later.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.